Hello and welcome to AI in Focus. It's a podcast exploring how thoughtful people can show up as their best selves in a world shaped by AI. We talk to founders, creators, and operators, and I'm so excited today to welcome Coyne, the Chief Experience Officer and founding member at the most well-known real estate brand at the U.S., Serhant, formerly CTO, and also the co-creator of Simple, an AI-powered Chief of Staff service for agents. Coyne, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Stephen. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Now, I saw somewhere you might frequent Florida, and maybe also New York. I'm originally from New York. I call myself a New Yorican, and but I live here in Florida as well. So where do we find you today?
Oh my goodness. I'm in a town called Wellington, which is like
Yes.
25 minutes west of Palm Beach.
That's
It's a
it.
very equestrian, quiet area. I'm not a horse guy before you ask me. They tend to run away when they see me coming. They just go, no, that guy.
Sure, sure, sure.
And,
Same.
but it's quiet and it's lovely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I've been in Florida for many years, and I'm enjoying it. But as well as Florida, we got to talk about AI because that's a lot of what you do. And so being the co-creator of Simple, I've been researching and reading about Simple, but I think it would help if you can give me just a layman's terms in our audience. What is Simple? What is it for?
It's workflow automation for salespeople. Think of like Instacart or Amazon Prime for salespeople. We realized that if an agent is sitting at a computer doing admin work, they are losing money, and so are we. And a lot of agents will be given solutions by different kinds of people, third parties, other brokerages, things like that, and be told, here's a great tool, learn how to use it, have a nice life. If you don't use it, sorry, kind of thing. We realized a long time ago that rather than constantly building new screens and new tools for agents, what they really do not want is another login, another password, another screen, another training. They just want their time back. So what Simple really is at its core is something that gives agents their time back so they can focus on anything else. Hopefully that's their clients and their family. But if they want to use that time however they see fit, that's up to them. And we also provide different kinds of advisory and coaching services to help them maximize their business. The number one thing that all salespeople face as a problem is prioritization and focus. How do I know that the next thing that I'm going to spend time on is somehow tied to generating me revenue? So access to Simple means that they can focus that energy and that mental space back on anything except for the kind of boring admin work that a wonderful, wonderful AI paired with humans in the loop, because we don't believe that AI is ready for complete autonomy. We've seen studies as recently as this past year from McKinsey, Deloitte, and others that over 70% of agentic workflows fail, even before OpenClaw and different kinds of things, which I'm sure we'll get into. But we realized early on that having humans in the loop, almost like sous chefs in the kitchen that are W-2 Serhant employees onshore with real estate experience, in tandem with the AI, was the way that agents could finally do something else they struggle with, which is confidently delegate.
Okay, so that's always that's what we want. We want AI to do menial tasks, the busy work, so we can do the important stuff. And so it sounds like Simple is part of that. Tell me what, if you're a real estate agent or someone using Simple, what is it doing? Is it AI that I then don't have to do or can be less part of that process? Like, what are the actual tasks that it's doing?
Everything from putting new entries into the CRM or calling out information from their CRM to actually creating CMAs that are then, no two agents agree on what a good CMA is. So they can also make edits if they want to. There's also listing presentations and area atlases and client communications cheat sheets that we put together using the API for personality and disc assessment that we have tied in. Everything from actually marketing strategy to the actions that it takes to get something, everything except for putting it on the MLS. We can do AI virtual staging. We can even do AI headshots and bios and all the basic things, but going way beyond to all different kinds of strategic elements of an agent's workflow about a listing or their business, newsletters and marketing reports, like all kinds of different stuff.
So you just said disc assessments, and I know that's a big part of your work is, identifying people's strengths. And so are you saying that you can take a disc assessment from an agent and train possibly an AI so it actually responds and creates things based on that person's personality?
Yes. And we also are able to tune the marketing that way as well. So if an agent has a source property, even before they actually get the listing, we're able to, based on the listing information and also the lowlights, which are rarely publicly advertised, but an agent has those things available to them. We are able to actually put together the buyer personas for a listing, who are the types of people, their urgencies, their concerns, what they do for a living, what their family structure might be like, what they like about the neighborhood, what they don't, different kinds of things. And be able to take, usually 10 or 15 is enough to build enough of a profile of a property. And then actually take the archetypes of those people, more generalized, after being specific, you zoom out a little bit. And then the entire marketing strategy is focused on cohorts of 2 to 3 or sometimes 4 of those archetypes at a time, because there is no one size fits all marketing strategy. And the old style of spray and pray and hoping that people flock to this flame does not work. So we're taking the demographic targeting of the last, 20, 25 years of the online ad industry, and we're actually taking that all the way to psychographic targeting based on behaviors and habits and different kinds of interests of those people. And we have the ability to also take all this information and give it to the agent in a way that is targeted at their particular prospect's psychology, so that they can present it very specifically to that client in a way they will appreciate and understand and absorb, and also have their time respected and their time back. We also help agents who have a more analytical personality realize that the data that's important to them may need a story to be told along with it for the kind of person they're talking to, who isn't a data analytics driven kind of brain, which reduces the frustration and allows them to provide better hospitality and customer service. We can look up anybody in seconds.
Okay, so I want to guess one more in the weeds nerd question, and then we'll zoom back out to like work culture and productivity. But is this an in-house LLM, or if you're comfortable saying, are you using like OpenAI's API in the background? If you're
as far as Simple's technology stack, there's a collage. So we've always kind of had a Docker kind of structure to this, like a containerized structure where there's different agents living in different areas with different access to different data.
Okay.
And there's essentially a chief of staff that lives in the system that almost uses those agents like tools it can call. We've been early to that since like the days that Crew AI and other things were like starting to emerge from the primordial ooze. We just got started earlier than most other companies did. So it's like, there are people that we see in the news, or we'll hear inside baseball, or I'll be at a conference like Inman speaking like I was last month, and I'll be having conversations with people and I walk away like, good for them. They're 2 years behind us, but good for them that they're on this journey. Just because we started more recently than them, our founder and CEO does what they do for a living. Like he walks 1,000,000 miles in an agent's shoes because he still does it. He has a respect for technology and the job that not every CEO has, because of not having been there, done that, especially not currently. The guy asks me for a Claude invite to our account because he wants to start messing around. How many CEOs do that?
That's a great point. All right.
So the personality thing is a whole separate thing that I've been working on for 13 years with a guy in Nashville. And we just happen to leverage that.
Well, one more question on that. I mean, how has the AI tools in the last few years changed? I mean, if you've been working on that for 13 plus years, I know just for me personally, I'll create a custom GPT for a task because it does exponentially better when I give it a set of instructions that it refers to every time. Mm-hmm. How has that changed as you've seen the emergence of OpenAI, but then now Claude also rising in the ranks? How's it changed?
Yeah. I think it's a good. I'll answer you with an anecdote that I think is powerful. I was messing around with the GPT-2 playground in like mid 2021.
Before the rest of the world, basically.
Well, before most, you know what? You know who was on it first, dude? The fan fiction community.
Really?
These mofos were out there rewriting Harry Potter books with it before anybody else was understanding what the power of this thing was.
Interesting.
That was the first primary audience that was just like flocking to the site, other than enterprise. Because if you've heard the story from the people on the product team, the businesses they were pitching this to just couldn't wrap their heads around it. So the chat interface was just something that allowed them to play around easier than the playground. It wasn't even supposed to become all this. We weren't even supposed to be inundated with the chatbots are everywhere thing. That was just an accident. Right. And now we're all back to playing the text adventure games of the 90s that I grew up on, right? For real, though.
King's Quest 4, man. I grew up on that.
Right there with you. We look at this, and I remember when ChatGPT first came out, November 30th, 21, I sent it to a colleague. The first question I got back was, can it do a recipe for lasagna? So really, for me, it really came down to thought leadership of what we did. Leadership is about changing the way that people think. Management is changing what people do. If you only ever focus on changing what people do, you will only ever be a manager, or worse, a micro one. So the most effective leaders are the ones who challenge themselves to get so into the mission, the vision, and the why, and the reasoning behind something, and the effective ways to communicate it to others until they get through to somebody. That is where Serhant has excelled the entire time I've been here, of course, since the very beginning, but where Ryan has been an incredible mouthpiece for himself and for the rest of us who form the vision and the mission, going back to 11 years plus that I've been with him. So my first experience trying to conform this and customize it for a user was for an agent of ours who lost her husband suddenly. They're both young people, late 30s. I won't go into the story behind why, but it was very sudden and very tragic. And the agent was unwilling to speak to anybody professionally. And I'm not a psychological professional. I'm a psychological enthusiast. So I thought to myself, all right, I can probably throw together at least a cognitive behavioral therapy prompt that if she were to drop it into a new chat, this is before memory, before customization, before custom GPTs, but it would kind of position it in a certain way. You probably remember this, when you could kind of put it in certain modes in different chats. Yeah. And that was pretty transformatively cathartic. It wasn't trying to do any other therapy for the person other than reframing thoughts and feelings and helping them understand their own thoughts and feelings. And when that was a serious impact in a positive way on that person's life, that was like, oh my God, if we just give it the right parameters, this has the power to help humans as a force multiplier for anything, for anything. And the custom GPTs was a revelation. We saw that an agent using, we ended up using the OpenAI Assistants API, kind of throwing those into something that could be wrapped in Serhant software as part of Simple. Agents fully adopting Simple and the customized AI that was tuned to their personalities. My FP&A team showed me in Excel that was a random sampling of about 10 agents. The average agent saw a 144% GCI increase year over year, comparing two very similar real estate quarters across 2 different years. Those were huge unlocks for us to see that we just needed to keep going and to go faster at enabling and empowering humans with the right kind of personalized AI.
That's so good. Okay, so back to a higher level. There's headlines out there where the workers, those on the ground, say AI doesn't make them more productive, but the managers love it and they want their workers to be using it. You're in a position to kind of see all the levels, both from on the ground to someone like, Ryan, who's on both. What is actually happening? What is both sides of the AI?
What's the ground truth?
Exactly. What is the ground truth?
I'm going to keep answering you in stories because I find them to be better generally than just like regular answers on some kind of a conversation like this. A buddy of mine runs a very successful social media company, empire, whatever it is. And his first client back in 2011 was Kobe Bryant, RIP. And he, to this day, manages J-Lo's accounts and consults to Nike and Netflix and all these different people. This guy shouldn't need help from anybody. Okay? 75-person team. They do a bang-up job, all this stuff. But he reaches out to me and he says, Coyne, I've been spending money hand over fist on AI this and AI that. Who do I go to next if what I've been doing has been failing me and it's not really having the transformative impact on my business that I thought? And I started asking him really difficult questions about where the humanity was considered in this. Have they built the solution around the lifers that he's got in the business that he's not firing tomorrow? Or is he asking those people to meet something that was designed in a vacuum, which so many companies do that. They make the mistake of, this is going to be great. We'll give it to them. We'll train them. How about you don't leave psychology outside the party and you actually bring the humanity back in? A bionic arm needs to be fitted, does it not? You can't just go to the bionic arm store and shop for a prosthetic for whatever, but there's a prosthetic experts, I forget what they're called, probably a prosthetician or something. If I made that mistake, whatever, people can roast me in the comments. Regardless, there's a personalization that happens with that technology in that moment that so many companies are skipping, and then they're mad at themselves or they're mad at the staff or both. Everyone sees the potential. You have white collar workers who are feeling the same pressure on them that the blue collar workers felt on the auto assembly lines of Detroit when the robots came 20 some odd years ago.
Right.
What they felt then, we're feeling now. Now, on the other side of it, you have Microsoft who's insisting that there's not going to be any more need for knowledge workers in 2 years, but I can't get Microsoft Copilot to left justify the text on a single PowerPoint slide.
The amount of TikToks I see about Microsoft Word.
You're telling me we're 2 years away, but nobody can show me a single use case of it being something that's farm to table usable other than Serhant? Other than Serhant. You're telling me that we are the most far. So this is one of the reasons that Columbia University Business School has made me a recurring guest lecturer in the executive MBA program in the Power and Influence class, because they wrote multiple case studies specifically on the way that myself and my team successfully integrated AI into the organization at scale, at every layer, with multiple constituents and people who needed to be on board. So we're being studied in the Ivy League now because of how rare this shit is.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned, humanity. By the way, orthotists apparently are prosthetic experts.
Orthotists.
I think that's how you say it. But as you said, integrating AI, one of the things today is the fatigue of AI slop. And if anyone has ever tried to contact UPS or an airline via their virtual chat, there's typical frustration, whereas they know they're dealing with some AI chatbot. And so real estate is inherently a very relational type of business, and many clients dealing with the same real estate agents for maybe decades. So how do you balance that, where you inject enough AI so that it's useful, but you still maintain the human connection? Where does emotional intelligence play into that? How do you balance that?
Yeah. So I'll answer you this way. I think that real estate was an excellent litmus test for all of that style of technology. Because when we're evaluating any kind of technology solution, everybody drops off newspapers and dead birds at my doorstep every day with what the next best solution is. I can't walk the floor at Inman without some vendor stopping me saying, "Hey, Coyne, can we show you this? We're just Ryan Serhant's face away from taking over the world. Take a number, buddy," right? So anyway, what I look at in the space is what's the efficacy metrics above and below a certain price point. I think that AI calling and different kinds of agentic solutions that are action-based or customer service-based below a certain price point, I think that's like I knew I bought a seat behind row 35 on the plane and I know what I'm getting on Spirit Airlines experience. And you know what? We aspire to move all the way up to the front of the plane, as long as people have a pathway to reach that aspiration. Now, I think when you go above a certain price point, the premium experience is more expected. So there's a really stark contrast between the agents who have implemented something that they paid 10 or 15 grand because somebody offered to build it for them on a calling solution that's a numbers game. People cold call. People still cold call. In the luxury market, they cold call. Absolutely. But they expect a real person to have that time and to be respecting their time and respecting their money. Over $3 million, I seem to find, is the cutoff where you can't get away with it. And it's still dicey between 1.2 and 2.5. Pretty dicey, but you can see both. As soon as you go over 2.5 or 3, those clients are not going to respect it. Now, when I had dinner with Jordan Belfort, yes, that one, in 2024, it was July. If you had told a younger me that I was going to find myself alone in a Miami restaurant with the Wolf of Wall Street for 3 hours, cracking prawns and downing tequila shots within 10 minutes of meeting each other, I would have insisted you were on more drugs than DiCaprio did in the whole movie. But there I was. Now, we were there to talk about AI, and he's involved with something called Straight Line AI. It's a sales AI calling solution. And we're in a very friendly debate about whether or not people are going to want this in their life and whether or not they are going to vote with their dollars, which is what consumers do. And his case was, well, why wouldn't you want to talk to the most competent version of a representative that you could possibly get on the phone versus the random person they usually have working a call center? Okay, that's one side. It depends on the experience. And I think that everybody is looking for the problems to solve. There's a lot of solutions in search of a problem. And when there's a match, an angel gets its wings. Not an angel investor, they're losing a lot of money. But I think that you're seeing people and solutions pair off where it works, and the market is just trying everything right now.
So even for those, like, let's say sub-$1 million clients, when you advise an agent, is there like a percentage where you say you can use 60% of your communications can be AI driven or powered, but make sure you do 40% actual? Like, do you ever advise that kind of ratio?
No, I do. It's part of my main stage presentation that I've been asked to come give all over the country in the last like 6 months. Automate the repeatable, human the exceptional. And there's a basic decision filter of, does something increase trust in your brand or the decision to spend money with you? Keep it human. If it doesn't, go for AI or automation. That's the simple decision filter. Is it something that has the potential to increase or deepen trust in your brand or the purchase decision? Keep it human.
That's good. So even these AI tools, I imagine the agents do have to learn how to use them, and we're all kind of learning how to use AI and tools in our daily life. So at a large scale, when you're implementing something like Simple across an organization, I imagine touching hundreds, if not thousands of agents, how do you roll that out successfully? How do you teach all these people how to use an AI tool effectively and not mess it up or not get a poor result?
Right now, I think that you're talking about a few different constituents in this. There's power users.
Sure.
You know, there are people who think they're power users, but they're on a journey. And then there's everybody else who want to benefit from this and aren't quite sure where to start. You know, the thing that I also talk about from the stage is typically that AI is moving so quickly and is changing so quickly that it's like a highway. And whenever you get on the highway is fine. You'll be traveling at the same speed as everybody else on the way to the destination, because there ain't a destination. No one knows where they're going. And it's every 6 weeks, it's a fresh slate. So anybody who tells you they're an expert on all the things that have ever happened with AI, cool. You can tell good stories and you're a historian, but that doesn't mean you have a solution for my business tomorrow, right? So essentially what we're doing is we're unscrambling the egg. I think people sat through 5 years of FOMO-based Instagram posts and TikTok and everything else. Here's this crazy complex, even our own Serhant studios. We were experimenting with AI headshots. I said, can I see what the prompts are that you're using? And it was like, you are using a Canon EOS this with a this lens and a this focal distance and a yada yada. The prompt was this long because they amalgamated it from stuff that they had seen that other people were using. Whether or not that was true, and people just like posting content to get likes, whatever, who cares? Now that my prompt, make me a studio portrait photograph of this person that has a premium look and a luxury watch on the left wrist. And like, my prompts are really concise. Typically I will layer them where it's like, if I want to restage a property photo, when we were training our prompts for that, I won't just give it those instructions. I'll first ask AI to look at the photo, super describe and analyze it. And if the goal is this, what would the right prompt be? And kind of have that chain be kicked off by an agent and stuff like that, so that it's asking even a different one. Because I find that like right now, GPT 5.2 is better at that first part and Nano Banana is better at that second part. And you need to like assemble these things. So I'm helping agents, real estate ones, need to be specific, thanks world,
right.
with unlearning that you need to be some kind of crazy complex prompt engineer. It really is context engineering. Humans are great at two things: pattern recognition and context. That's it. So if you're good at like, keep it simple, when possible, context matters more, like the craft framework, right? Like context, role, action, format, and target audience, that's still good advice.
Right.
You know, but these crazy complex prompts and having to learn everything, or even having to get into agentic. What are you automating? Why? Maybe your process as it exists right now is broken to start out with, and you're automating something that you could just go on loom.com, record your entire workflow for an hour and a half, and then ask AI to help analyze where you're being inefficient with that workflow. Then use the rules of 555. Is it something that's taking you longer than 5 minutes? Is it something that you'll still be doing 5 months from now?
Hmm.
Is it something that you anticipate is going to continue being something that's going to be on your list for the next 5 months or more? Like, you have to come up with a framework for how to decide what even is a good enough process to attack with automation, or else you're going to be tens of thousands of dollars deep on consultants like that guy who called me.
Exactly. So what I imagine when a client hears how Serhant and Simple are working and that there's a lot of AI tools behind the scenes, they might have a concern, or they might ask, like, how will I know that I'm going to be working with a real human? So how do you address concerns from, like, maybe average or regular clients that are just coming on? They hear there's a lot of AI tools in the background. How do you address those concerns?
You saw this happen on season 2 of our Netflix show, Owning Manhattan, where a property developer, I think it was at One Park Row in downtown Manhattan near the financial district, asked one of our agents, "You're on a lot of buildings right now. I bet you tell every single developer that you're pitching that you're going to have all this bandwidth for them." It's like, I bet you say that to all the girls, but for developers and real estate agents talking, right?
Right.
That agent is available for all of their clients, and they do have that scale because they have tailwinds of Serhant Simple at their back, and the rest of our service teams too. We are the most human technology company that there is. There's nobody else who's obsessed with psychographics and psychology and blending AI plus EQ. There just isn't anybody. I was presenting a research paper, in March of 25 at a scientific conference on AI plus EQ and applied practical workflows at scale inside enterprise organization. And everybody there is like, this is not doing it. So yeah, I think that somebody who's got the ability to leave their humanity, human the exceptional, keeping their humanity in the things that build and deepen trust, where their judgment is really necessary, and they're able to be benefiting from that personalized support and that humanized support behind the scenes. This isn't really like a banner ad for Serhant or Simple. It's a thought. This is the way that I recommend that every organization be thinking. How can you force multiplier the good things about being human?
Right.
AI doesn't make eye contact, not yet. And even then, it's just empathy is not something that's easy to teach, not to a robot.
Right. I like the feeling that you're kind of giving here, of that it's not just that AI will replace humans, but maybe humans using AI will replace maybe the humans that don't.
It's the bionic arm. It's the, they in Japan, they give the elderly people sometimes these like mechanical suits that assist their movement and mobility, and the factory workers, construction workers. We've been doing this forever. Forrest Gump and his magic legs. I mean, this is not new.
Right. All right. Well, when it comes to real estate and AI, what's not automated right now that you hope to automate, or that you hope in the future we can automate with AI agents and tools that would save even more time for agents?
Oh, man. Emotional maturity reinforcement.
What do you mean by that?
The sooner that somebody's willing to look into a mirror on how they can show up as a better leader or professional in the situation, everything comes to a conclusion much more quickly. So I think the human trust in the analysis being something that has a shorter runway, because it's a good thought partner. It's not like you need to do every single thing that it says, and it's not like everything it says is going to be true.
Right.
A human can be the data can tell us who Stephen Robles is, which, by the way, Stephen is likely to thrive in an unstructured environment and tends to act on intuition. He's enthusiastic, adaptable, and personable is just your headline. And I think that's true just based on our limited interaction here.
Now, wait. What is that from? Is that from our conversation right now? Or
have you ever read terms and conditions before in your life before clicking I agree?
I mean, it's just on all the information. I mean, I'm on YouTube, and that's what I literally do now.
Do you own a cell phone?
Sure, yes.
Do you have a credit card?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean,
so it's just all out there.
Do you use Gmail?
Not as my main email, but
Google Maps?
I use Fastmail with SaneBox. That's what I.
Do you have an Instagram account?
Yeah. Wait. So wait. Where did that just come from? You just ask, who is Stephen Robles, or what is Stephen Robles, or what did you just do?
I just typed your name into a thing, and I found Stephen Robles, video something, and this and this, and I clicked a button, and then 2 seconds, you're an eye motivator, You trust people quickly. You generate lots of new ideas by yourself. You make hand motions while talking. Check. You like sharing big, inspiring ideas. You like innovation, social energy, peer recognition. You hate having your ideas shut down. You hate people nitpicking details. You hate feeling stuck in the same place. You hate lack of creativity.
What in the world? Wait. Okay, hold on. Is this a tool that you use when you're like onboarding agents, or when this is something you put clients through, or everything?
I don't hire anybody before seeing if it's going to be a culture fit by plugging it into the rest of the team's data. I run a simulation on the next 36 months of the business based on if I hire this person or that person according to their data, and mitigation strategies for culture integration and fit, so I can build them an executive onboarding accelerator kit, which we just did for our new chief technology officer, Greg Chan. On day one, he had a glossary of company terms and a complete historical download on everything about the company's technology stack, political alliances he needed to form early and why, who moves quickly, who moves slow and methodically, but not because they're resistant, just because they need more explanation. All tuned to his communication style and psychology, like a presidential briefing on day zero. And he's ex-Amazon, ex-Microsoft, and more. And he said it was the best onboarding experiences of his entire career. We all mess around. We do that for staff. We do it for their clients, for the agents. We do it all, dude.
Okay, hold on. You're blowing my mind a little bit right now. All right, so number one, I totally see, AI agents creating a wiki for a company, having it be like an internal knowledge base, like all that's great. But you said a second ago that you put them into a question like, how will the company perform in the next 3 years if I hire them?
Yes.
What is, like, have you ever done that, and what the AI told you initially didn't pan out, where it was actually wrong about how the company performed after hiring someone?
I mean, nothing is ever 100%, but some of my favorite experiments to do are to take a series of events that we already know happened and essentially just give it the people and the origin, like the starter prompt for what happens if these two people were to meet, simulate 18 months. And I let the people read it, and it's like, holy crap, how is it doing that? That it knew we were going to end up business partners or together or not friends, or what our dynamic was going to be broken down month over month and when these things would happen. That's my favorite, is when you try to get it to predict the past and it shows you how accurately it can also predict the future. That's called, psychohistory is a whole separate thing.
I was literally just about to say Isaac Asimov, Psychohistory and Foundation.
100%. 100%. It's like not a coincidence. Like, he was onto something. Right. Human behavior, which is one of the biggest things that AI as a movement is leaving out. They're trying to replace the humans who are too fallible to be replaced. Okay? If you hug as opposed to push out, everything would go farther, faster, and everybody can make money and be fine. When you are looking at the human behavioral trends and what is likely to happen, you can just watch out for it. If you know it's going to be cold, you take a jacket. If you know it's going to rain, you take an umbrella. If I know that this person's coming in with like tons of creative, visionary energy, but they tend to be over optimistic on outcomes, or you lose time when track of time when working on projects. That's something that you do. You also pursue too much at once, and you also over delegate the follow through on certain details on projects. If there's work, so if I know that, I'm going to make sure that I pair you with somebody who's like a CS editor type of person, who's super meticulous and functions as an extension of your brain, so I can harness all the wonderful things that come out of that noggin of yours. Great haircut, by the way.
Thank you.
And
share that.
Also defend the business from those things falling through the cracks. Or put AI tools around you that make up for those things. It's about a SWOT analysis. What are those strengths and opportunities that we can mitigate the weaknesses and the threats with AI?
So this is it really is blowing my mind, because honestly, people might be hearing this or seeing this and they're thinking that sounds like some kind of weird futurist thing. But like you're saying, we forecast the weather. We trust, however inaccurate they may be, with the temperature tomorrow and bring a coat outside. And if somehow, because what AIs are best at is taking in huge amounts of data.
Patterns. Pattern recognition.
And so someone's work history, how they act online, social media, their emails, how they write, how they communicate, all of that data, it's impossible for a single person manager to evaluate the entire history of an employee. But a large language model and AI can. And so that is incredible.
Yeah, the internet's got tens of thousands of data points on most of us.
Exactly.
We're just not using it to sell anybody anything on Instagram or TikTok, unless you count real estate as a thing that we're trying to sell people. But that's not the primary driver. The primary driver is efficacy and matching. Like Serhant has one of the lowest average days on market for luxury properties in the world, because we don't waste time letting things just sit with no thought given to who are we actually doing this for.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to recover from this conversation. But before we go, I need to ask some other future questions because I'm curious. One, I heard that you're kind of a VR, AR, and how that might play into the future of your business and others. You're pretty bullish. I have my Apple Vision Pro right over here. I don't know if you got one of these, but I don't know. Where do you think that could play into the future?
It's a crawl, walk, run.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I go back to Virtual Boy in the 90s. Right. So
Same.
I've been through a bunch of iterations of this, of the industry being like, it's time for VR. And the public is just not ready, over and over and over again. Like I was working a trade show in 2015 with a Samsung Oculus and a Galaxy S7 Edge. I'll never forget it. And the line to try Matterport that like nobody had seen in VR before was like the longest line at the trade show. Other people were mad at me for like sucking up people's time who just wanted to be in line to try the VR at this thing in Long Island at the Crest Hollow of all places. Man, what a weird time period that was for me. I think that there is appetite, but not at the scale that is necessary to sustain the investment from the players.
Yeah.
We've designed an economy of scale requirement that whether it's Samsung or Apple or HTC or anybody else in the space, or the only person who's got that kind of cash to burn and doesn't need to give two flying you-know-whats is Valve, you know? So I think that the move to mixed reality, XR, and augmented reality, there's a reason that we've been fantasizing, all of us, about that hyper-real video on YouTube that was, I think, in Colombia, in South America, it was produced. Since 2014 or 2015, that video came out showing us what reality could be with an augmented layer. Right. People do not want to be walled off from each other or look ridiculous. People do not want to feel isolated more than we already are. They don't want to be sweaty. They don't want to deal with these crazy big battery packs. Spatial computing, show me Minority Report, show me like the Matrix Zion Control Center, show me Star Trek with, you know, different kinds of whatever. Fine. But I think that they're taking shots and they're testing the waters and the appetite. Apple had the right idea in a really significant way. You need to get measured and it needs to be tuned to your eyes.
Right.
So that if you were going to try it, it didn't suck. And you would tell tales to your grandchildren about how magical it felt.
Yeah.
That was a good preservation. I do not think people want VR and mass adoption. Like we have a Mercedes-Benz Miami tower right now where the people can go into the sales center and they can try it out and put themselves on any terrace of any unit that's not even built yet, however high in the sky, and see the sunset and the birds. And, you know, they even have a thing that kind of poops on you from a pigeon. Just kidding. That's next year.
It's too computationally intense right now.
I mean, really, just somebody with a squirt gun is just like standing there and you can't
4D.
see him with the headset. Exactly. So anyway, yeah, there are some experiences that are enhanced by it. Some.
Yeah.
But you also have businesses like Walk the Plan that rents out these giant warehouses, and then they have a projector top down of the floor plan so you can walk around the floor plan on a concrete floor.
Right.
We can't choose, and the industry, to justify the manufacturing cost and the distribution cost, needs us to choose, but humans are not good at making up our minds.
Right.
We're good at having our thoughts made for us and our decisions made for us. Steve Jobs used to yell at his product team, "I will tell them what they want."
Right.
Was what Steve used to say.
Yeah.
If you are that kind of visionary, go for it. But that kind of visionary does not exist in the VR space right now. People have spoken with their dollars. They do not want it. Casey Neistat, love the guy. He's a friend and a client of Ryan's and all kinds of stuff. That video about how this is the future and he's sitting on benches around New York City wearing it, that aged like milk. AR though, the battery problem. If we can move beyond lithium ion and get to something solid state with a decent capacity,
Right.
that could change the world in a big way.
Yeah.
Augmented, for sure.
All right, last couple. What AI development or news story are you watching most closely right now? Claude is big in the news. OpenClaw, I downloaded on a computer and then immediately stopped because I didn't want it prompt injecting from my email. What AI news stories or tools or developments are you following closely personally?
Supply chain.
Hmm.
This is the sleeper of all this is the fact that Google is the only company in it that's not really super dependent on NVIDIA's, udder for more milk. I mean, they have their own chips.
Right.
They have all the data on everybody, including you, and where I got some of this data from was from Google's systems. I mean, YouTube is a multi-generational staying power thing that ain't going anyplace. It's on a short list of websites that are not part of dead internet theory. YouTube is a social network. They just don't call it that.
Right.
I think that the hard drives all being bought up for 2026, according to Western Digital, and they're out, is very telling. I think that RAM having a shortage is very telling. I think that all those allocations and the way that even the U.S. government took a stake in Intel, and how fast they're pushing those fabs to get up and running in Arizona.
Yeah.
What you look at AMD, NVIDIA, Google, Intel's stock right now, everybody is betting the future on that all these different companies all win at the exact same time. Impossible. Right. So water, electricity, putting data centers in space. I mean, like all of that, whatever empowers what's going to be possible for 15, 20 years from now is more interesting to me. Not that the other stuff isn't. OpenClaw and that whole debacle is an exercise in like Anthropic should have handled that very differently. Offer the guy a job on day one.
Right. OpenAI snatched him up.
I'm telling you, and he's not a Schmed Lab developer. He developed the PDF solution that's built into the majority of things that isn't Adobe. He made his bag once already. But yeah, that's Hype Cycle is OpenClaw. That is going to be impacted by the generationally impacting like supply chain news cycle. To me, it's about the constraints on what is possible. Even the Chinese cars with Canada and BYD eating Tesla's lunch now. Yeah. Rare earth metals, battery components, solid state battery, data centers, water, electricity, chips, Taiwan, like all of that. That's what has me awake at night.
All right, last question. Outside of Simple and Serhant, what are the AI tools you are using personally? What AI app is on your home screen iPhone? Take both of those or one if you prefer. But I'm curious, what do you use personally?
I mean, I get over 1,000 emails a day and couldn't live without SaneBox. That's an easy one. I've been eating, breathing, and sleeping that for a really long time, and I don't remember life before it. I think I had more hair. It's the one thing I remember from before it.
I wish I had used it earlier because I might still have it. I get it.
Yeah. I also like Whisperflow. That thing has enabled me to just be typing less.
Right. That's like a speech to text transcriber.
Yeah.
Right? You just turn it on and it's like drag and dictate, but on steroids kind of thing.
On steroids. Also Vercel V0. Like V0 has turned me into like, I'll spare you the examples, but Vercel V0, when it was only Vercel's AI like bot in there, got a bajillion times upgrade now that it has Opus 4.5 and 4.6 built directly into Vercel V0. I'm building and shipping things in like 30, 40 minutes that used to take a team weeks and weeks. That's pretty cool. And I think Wren Systems is pretty cool too. The thing that kind of stalks your clients for information about them and excuses to reach out. Those are my big ones.
When you have like a general query, you just want to search for something, but you don't want to use Google. Do you use Gemini or ChatGPT's web search or similar to do that kind of activity?
It's funny you asked that. I was really into Perplexity for a long time.
Same.
I've found myself reaching for it less and less.
Yes.
Because I tend to have I have a like a workspace set up on my cockpit of screens here, and I like to have Gemini, GPT, and Claude open side by side. Once in a while, I'll try like something that's kind of off the beaten path, whether it's Minstrel or something like that, or Mastra is one that we're liking right now. not Mensis, if anybody's curious, or
Right,
Menace,
right.
Manus, whatever it's called. And I'll run the same query across all three and compare. I even like that I'm seeing that more and more online right now, are these actual, like, here's a case study of asking all three, because Gemini seems to have a really fun personality. Claude seems to be really good at being succinct and mostly accurate. GPT is still the one that'll kind of make up the most to fill in the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
But they produce a different quality of output, each of them. It's almost like flavors of ice cream. And I think that it's important for anybody who's thinking about transforming their enterprise in different kinds of ways to be driving all different kinds of cars and seeing what that feels like, or else you'll end up with blinders on and a bias that you create for yourself. Because the only that company that I forget, it was, somebody told me about this yesterday, that there was a company that built a chatbot that they had to mandate the employees use because nobody was using it. So they used it for a year, and then a year later found out that the thing was hallucinating numbers the entire time, and nobody got fired for it. But the company lost a year of accurate everything.
Yeesh. Okay.
Not a small business. Fortune
Yeah.
500.
Sheesh. Well, if you allow a couple more, then just because you jogged my thinking here. So, as companies don't use AI right now, they might struggle to implement it. How would you get CEOs thinking about AI adoption? How should they be looking at their processes or their business? What would be the first few steps you would tell someone if you're not using AI now? Yes, you need to be using it. Maybe you don't, depending on the business. You could tell me. And then what are the next steps to figuring out how it fits in someone's business?
I would ask them to think about Henry Ford's example. Henry Ford wanted to create the assembly line for vehicles, which threatened a lot of people's livelihoods. But he was obsessed with making sure that the employees felt appreciated and part of the business. He was a pioneer on making sure that employee culture was really fantastic. And because they bought in and felt psychologically safe, they didn't fight it. They contributed to it, and it got more successful more quickly. I think that as a leader, as a CEO, being receptive, like having an open door policy and actually being receptive, or even going as far as inviting feedback and inviting people's opinions, or passing judgment too quickly. You're rewarded for being a limbic thinker who needs a very small amount of information to decide something. But that will penalize the people around you who are less limbic and more prefrontal and creative to be fearful that they're going to look or sound stupid for speaking up. So you'll actually end up inhibiting the idea sharing and inhibiting the risk-taking kind of behavior, which is, I have an idea, which is, I think we should do this. And you'll end up surrounded by sycophants, unless you're more like the guy who started Publix, or Henry Ford, in different kinds of ways. There's definitely something to be said. If you are not creating psychological safety, you will accidentally be starting your own undoing. You think that you are operating a business that's moving quickly. You know where the term sabotage comes from? Dutch wooden shoes. They're called sabot. And when the Dutch East India Company, which was the most spectacular failure of a company in history because of how big that thing frickin' was, they had wooden machines that the factory workers felt very threatened by. And when they wanted to strike or protest, or they just didn't like the automation, they would throw their sabot into the machines to gum up the works and to ensure different kinds of outcomes. Your employees can do that now by seeding the wrong kind of information into the models you're training, by mistraining other employees, by not giving a crap about the outcomes that you might not be as aligned on as you thought. Because you haven't enabled anybody to actually be a truth teller.
That is so good. One of my favorite books is Creativity Inc. And in that book, they talk about trust and candor being such key elements within an organization to foster creativity. And at the same token, Ray Dalio, the wrote the Principles, my uncle actually works for Bridgewater Associates, and the just extreme candor, the environment of extreme candor within that organization. And honestly, I feel like not only were those ideas so good at the time, but I think they were almost ahead of their time, because maybe that's why people love these AI chatbots now, is because they're more honest.
But that for sure, they're a more willful mirror if you're willing to look into it, like we talked about earlier. But again, the patterns of human behavior, you can change a bunch of the things that are going on around us. The things that are enabling our growth and also inhibiting our growth are going to be the same. Human nature does not really change a lot. If they used to tell us when we were kids, if you ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it. Still holds.
Right.
What? Because it's different because it's AI. It's different because it's the internet. It's different because it's CDs. It's different because what? Because of wireless technology, TV, radio, flight. How far back you want to go?
Yeah. Well, how should someone? Because when people hear about all the AI and what it can do, people get a little nervous, I think, in their field, or even as someone who I have a teenage kids thinking about what are they going to study, what are they going to work in their careers. How should someone approach what kind of career I should get into, or what kind of skills should I develop so I'm not obsoleted by AI, but rather that I can either use AI to my advantage, or that I at least am developing a skill that I will have that AI can't replace? How would you advise someone like that?
The more self-aware that you are, the more human you can be, and the more that you can be a guide for other humans who struggle with that. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. And reminder, we're a solar flare away, a bad enough one.
Sure.
Or an EMP terror attack.
Sure.
There are things, equal and opposite reaction. Just reminder, the implication that everyone's just going to sit and let that happen, also unlikely, right? So to answer your question directly, electrical engineer is a great one. That's what I have my son. My son's 15 years old, a sophomore in high school. He is studying electrical engineering.
My son is 16. All right, I'm going to get him started.
Electrical engineering, dude. That is it. That is it. Power, because humans just cannot be sated. I'm on GLP-1 because I couldn't get enough power too, just in a very different way. You know what I'm saying? Like just human nature again.
Sure.
So I think that the focus on human psychology, because they're going to be figuring out how to dial that in for a really, really long time. Energy research and sciences, educational design, obviously medical. Sure. A machine might be able to read a scan, but what is it looking for?
Right.
Understanding what a structure of a protein needs to look like if a computer figured out how to fold it properly to cure stage 4 pancreatic. There's a lot of stuff. It's just not the kinds of titles and fields that you would think of.
Right.
And even with the robots that you're seeing online, as far as the dexterity or the mobility in different kinds of ways that you're starting to see, I think we got a while before you're not going to need us. Now, that's not to say at TCL, the TV manufacturer's factory, there was a factory tour done by one of my favorite YouTubers like 2 years ago that was like, oh, yeah, we still have a human screwing in the screws because, we can't. And then they did another factory tour and it's like, oh, yeah, no, we figured that out. We figured out how to have a bot that was just like soft enough at screwing in the screws, not to go too far and not to strip them and to be that precise and stuff like that. Hairstylists, maybe.
Okay.
I mean,
well, let me ask you this. What do you think is going away? What is a career that you would say, oh, yeah, I want to major in X?
No, I mean, listen, I don't think as many things are going away as you think. Like I'm friends with some ghostwriters and some other writers and stuff like that. Yeah. AI is not funny. I can tell you as a former stand-up comedian,
Sure.
so I have a funny edge to my stage presentations about technology and culture and AI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
AI cannot write jokes.
Okay.
Other than knock BS that my 6-year-old likes.
So writing, because people I think thought writing was the first thing to go. Like
they thought that. Thought that. Yet the ghostwriters I'm friends with, their phones are still ringing off the hook from people who generated AI slop and now need a real human adult to come in and turn it into something actually readable and valuable.
Right. Okay.
So I think that AI is a good kindling, a good thought starter. If you're the kind of person that for anything that AI is good at, start legal, finance, all different kinds of stuff. Sure, you're going to have human judgment layers and edge cases galore all the time. If all humans end up being is edge case judges, that every time you decide an edge case, the AI gets smarter for it seeing that again, we're not running out of edge cases. That's why they call them edge cases.
Right. So even me, like as a content creator, more and more AI video is being generated. YouTube is even going to make tools.
You'll just get good at using the tools to help you with your workflows and what you produce.
Right. And I believe people, even with more AI slop, will actually look for more human connection, even if that's just a real human on the other side of the camera anyway.
We said that earlier. We found out that premium is all-time high for genuine human experiences.
Right.
Look at the world's oldest profession, man. You know, I'm just telling, like, sometimes there's no substitute for a living, breathing human being. That's never going to stop being true no matter what technology we invent.
That's really good. All right. Well, before we go, did your little bot there say anything about me, like my blind spots or anything that I should be improving?
I mean,
I'm actually terrified because it was a little crazy.
I mean, how to build trust with you, use diagrams to explain concepts, use self-deprecating humor, encourage their creativity, and speak with colorful descriptions. I only read that just now, but I think I did okay with you.
I think you did. I'm gonna have to get you offline and get whatever that tool is. Is that an internal tool or is that something you can't say?
We're in a very close partnership with the entity that produces the data because I've been involved with it for over 12 years, and I even hired the founder's younger brother to work in our studios department because it's something that I've always been fascinated with, and I could not wait to bring it to a wider scale market and to integrate it into the rest of the stuff we were building.
Yeah.
It was a really wonderful day when we clicked that button on that API being plugged into the rest of our systems.
Man, that's wild. Coyne, thank you so much for your time. If people want to go somewhere and see your work or find you, where should they go?
Ryan J. Coyne on Instagram, at Ryan J. Coyne.
Awesome. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Coyne, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. It was a pleasure. It was mine.